Hi, everyone. Welcome again to the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia's musical JewelBox. We've got a really exciting one today. We've been talking with all of our wonderful guest artists and conductors and music director and conductor laureates. But today we are talking to our orchestra itself. We've got acting concertmaster Luigi Mazzocchi with us today. And we're just so excited to have him here. Hi, Luigi. Thanks for taking the time to join us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we were just listening to a Prokofiev piece, right?
Correct. This is the second movement, middle movement of the violin sonata for violin solo. The Prokofiev wrote. It's in 3 movements, and this is a very cute little theme and variations that he put in there. It's a piece that a lot of people don't know. It's a piece that was commissioned by the Soviet Union Cultural Arts and Affairs as a pedagogical piece, and it was supposed to be performed by whole studios of violinists. I actually saw that once performed live with almost 20 violins all playing in unison. And actually was premiered after Prokofiev's death. And a lot of people don't know that he's got that sonata because it's been linked sort of with the teaching, the pedagogical side, but it's been performed more and more recently in concerts. So.
Well, that's fun, and we can always. I don't think we have enough Prokofiev in our lives, so the more the merrier. Piano concertos, violin concertos, solo violin sonatas. It's great. It's fun, and I vote up on it every time. But so let's talk a little bit about your history with the chamber orchestra. Do you know how long have you been playing with us?
That's a good question. I'm terrible with dates, and I have been in Philadelphia for a long time. I didn't play with the orchestra when it was concerto soloists, even though I was in Philly. I only started playing later when it was chamber orchestra as a sub, and I became a member of the orchestra, I believe, in 2013. So I want to say that maybe for 4 years before that, I was playing as a sub on and off, depending on when they needed me. And I used to sit all the way in the back of the second violins. Sometimes when they needed me in the first, I would sit in the back of the firsts. So I've seen the orchestra and the different angles of the Perlman Theater from both sides. and that's how I started. I became a member after a concertmaster audition. I have to say, I did audition a couple of times when I was a sub, and I never got a position. And I auditioned for concertmaster when Amijo got the job. I was the runner-up behind her. And when immediately after that, somebody left a position, I think it was Muna, the first violins. I was, according to the contract, I was offered her position as being the runner-up for concertmaster. And that's how I started playing the fourth chair for first violin after that.
And so delightfully appropriate now that you are acting concertmaster all the way from the back of the second violin. So that's a great trajectory. And so just so everyone gets to know you a little better, so that's you in Philadelphia, but what brought you to Philadelphia? Where did you come from before then?
Yes, I was born and raised in Venezuela, South America. Both my parents were Italian. My father was from Piacenza, close to Bologna in Italy, and my mother is from Genoa, and they both actually met in Venezuela. And I was born there, and I actually was very lucky that my mother was a frustrated pianist. She couldn't study piano during the war when she was a little girl, so she wanted me to be a musician. And it's funny because people ask me, "You always loved the violin," and I didn't want to be a musician. I wanted to be a soccer player and play for Juventus in Italy when I was a kid. So my mom found out that there was this new thing coming to our city. I am from a little city on the western part of Venezuela. I'm not from Caracas. And what we call now El Sistema, which was the Venezuelan Youth Orchestra at the time, was sort of new in my city, and my mom signed me up for that. And she would put me out from playing soccer on the streets to go to the orchestra. And I have to admit, sometimes I hated it. But it was great. I mean, being in what we call now a Sistema, with all, you create all these friendships and camaraderie, and, playing in orchestra since I was like 8 years old. That was my beginning, and my beginning training, and most important training, especially in orchestra playing. But when I was older, I joined actually the Latin American Violin Academy in Caracas. And briefly before I came, I joined the Simón Bolívar Orchestra, with which I toured in different places. But I wanted to see what else was out there and maybe get a degree from a university in the United States. And that's how I ended up in New Jersey first, at Rowan University. And then I did my master's, and I started, or I finished a doctorate. I just never wrote the dissertation at Temple University. So that's how I ended up in Philadelphia when I came to Temple around 1998.
How have you been keeping up in the pandemic? I mean, I know performing arts has been thin on the ground since we're not allowed to congregate, but I have seen a couple really fun pictures of you on Iseminger Street with a couple other players from the Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah, I have to say, with the pandemic hit, and we thought it would be a couple of weeks and a couple of months, and at some point I decided that I was gonna come out of this time as the best violinist I've ever been, and I started practicing 6-7 hours a day, which was great. It felt great. I had nothing else to do. And then after a while, I guess I got a little bit frustrated when things got longer and longer, and we didn't see the end of this pause of performing arts. So I started thinking, what am I doing if I can't really show everything that I'm practicing, and who knows when I will. And of course, then you started seeing all these videos made from home with different people, and I tried to play along with other people in real time afar, and you can't really do it because there's always a delay. You can't do it in real time. We discovered a cappella, and I made a couple of videos of myself. Some of them I never actually put them on the internet. I don't think they were very good. I made this video with a friend of mine, Antonello Di Matteo, who's a clarinetist, and he also plays accordion and zampoña. Is amazing. So I made this little video for violin and clarinet, and he moved actually a block from my house. So I told him, why don't we just play? You could play from the window, and I play from the other side of the street. I keep the mask on, and we play together, because I hate all this impersonal stuff. And another friend found out, Chuck Holdeman, a bassoonist, and he said, I'll join you guys, and we'll be all far away. And that developed into Chuck getting us to perform outside of the German Society, Beethoven Septet. And Miles, I invited Miles Davis, who's our principal bass player. And that was very noisy on Spring Garden Street, the motorcycles and all that stuff. We couldn't hear each other. So he said, why don't you come to my street, Eisminger Street? Cars can't run there, and it's much quieter. So we did, and I don't remember what we read. At the time, it was mostly septets that we were doing. We had clarinet, horn, French horn, and bassoon, plus strings. Yeah, somebody in the neighborhood, one of the neighbors, contacted WHYY, and they came and did an interview of Miles, and that ended up in the papers. I believe that was the first time, or maybe the second time we did it. I don't remember. And then it became a thing that we would just run things there, and I took that as an opportunity to learn new pieces by composers that we haven't heard of, and also run some pieces that I was learning with some Beethoven quartets and stuff like that. And it was great to feel like you can keep your chops on and play in real time with friends, all separated with masks. And that's how Eisminger became a thing during the summer.
Well, we take it wherever we can get it, especially this past year. But of course, we're looking forward to seeing you in our summer concert series coming up with the Four Seasons. So I don't know if we'll have masks for that or not, but it'll be hopefully a further extension of everyone coming back together in the outside, so we can be a little more safe, but still in something that resembles a real concert. But on the topic of music, you do have another piece of music for us here so that we can keep on our fun Sunday afternoon mini concert sessions. You want to tell us a little bit about what you're about to play for us?
Sure. Being from Venezuela, from South America, I love playing music composed there. And this year actually is Piazzolla's 100th birthday. So I thought I would play a piece that Piazzolla wrote, sort of like studies for single instrument, in this case, the flute. He wrote some tango etudes, as he calls them, for flute. He thought the flute and the guitar were the original instruments. It might be true, playing the tango on the streets at the very beginning of tango. And so he loved to write for the flute. A lot of violinists play those on the violin, and I created my own little transcription of this piece, adding some double stops and things like that. This is the Tango Etude number 3 from that series by Astor Piazzolla, and I hope you enjoy it.
And there we are, transported below the equator, or perhaps on the equator, depending on how far south you want to go for Piazzolla. But so, what a great way to incorporate other dance forms, because we have so many dance forms in like Baroque music through Bach and the rest of Europe, and the tango itself, there's no reason that it can't also join like the gavottes and the pavans and gaillards of all of our fun solo violin music. So tell us a little more about this piece and tango and Piazzolla for solo violin writing.
Sure. I played another piece written for flute and guitar by Piazzolla called L'Histoire du Tango, which I also transcribed for piano quartet, which is what we call in South America the history of piano, the history of tango according to Piazzolla. It's great writing, and it's a beautiful piece. I have also performed the Four Seasons, which are transcribed by I believe a Russian composer, which mixes them up with Vivaldi. So his music lends itself very well for the violin, I have to say. And of course, I also grew up listening to recordings of Piazzolla's own quintet, and the violinist there. It was such an inspiring example of how to play that kind of music. So I'm inspired, and I've tried to follow a little bit on that vein. So Piazzolla, like most people during the 20th century, went to Paris to study with Boulanger. And Boulanger, being the great teacher that she was, told him to go back and just write the music of his land and concentrate on tango, and not to try to write like somebody else, but just write like Piazzolla. So he took the tango, the traditional tango, and added all these different elements from what he learned in Paris. So you can hear a little bit of Stravinsky, a little bit of Bartók in there, which I added maybe a little more on my transcription. So the tango is really not to be danced, but to be listened to, although some of his pieces you feel like dancing. And some Argentinians that like the traditional tango are not completely sold on the idea of this new tango, or nuevo tango, like he called it. But that's what it is. It's just transforming the traditional tango into what we know now as the Piazzolla tango style, which is a little bit what you heard on that piece.
Well, we always look forward to having more Piazzolla, especially from such an authentic source of a man who embraces the tango himself. So thanks for joining us today. We've got one more piece that I think you've prepared for us that I'm equally excited to listen to. So tell us a little bit about that to send us off into Sunday night.
Yes, I have a piece that is related to two of the greatest violin players, performers, and composers of the turn of the 20th century, or into the 20th century. This is a piece by Fritz Kreisler. Kreisler is an Austrian violinist who actually moved to the US and became a US citizen. Kreisler, of course, is famous for writing a lot of the cadenzas for violin concertos that are traditionally performed all the time. He actually had a very interesting career as a composer, because he had a lot of original music that wanted to introduce in his recitals, and didn't know how to do that and compete with the great masters of the past that he performed often. So he had a little trick that he did, and that he would write pieces in the style of other violinists. And there's actually also an example of a Vivaldi violin concerto that he composed, that he said he had found somewhere in an attic, abandoned for years. And for a long time, people thought it was Vivaldi, even though it was more daring and it had some things that weren't quite Vivaldi. So he introduced his own pieces, sort of trying to make them look like somebody else's pieces. This piece that I'm going to play is called recitativo and scherzo. And it's his original piece. At this point, it was written in 1911. He's not trying to sound like anybody else, but he did dedicate the piece to a great violin master, the Belgian violinist Eugène Ysaÿe, who was almost 20 years older than Kreisler, and sort of took the violin playing into the 20th century. So I think that Kreisler was trying to impress Ysaÿe also with this piece. It's a tough, pesky little piece that has this very recitativo like first part, and then a dance in 3/4 little dance that is very charming, and it represents a little bit of what is the violin solo pieces of the 20th century by Kreisler in dedication of the great Eugène Ysaÿe.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. And thank you again so much for taking the time to talk with us today and to get a little connection with our beloved patrons and subscribers who are still sitting at home with their Sunday afternoon cocktails, I hope, and just having you make their weekend. So thanks for coming with us, and thanks everyone at home for taking the time to sit down and listen with us. We look forward to seeing you hopefully this summer, if you haven't gotten your tickets for our Orchestra in the Garden series. That Four Seasons concert is selling out. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, by God, get your tickets. And thanks for your support and love for the Chamber Orchestra of Philadelphia. And we hope you have a good evening and week.